As the snooker championship wends its way towards a conclusion, BBC2 takes off for Sheffield in half an hour. First, a touching takeoff of Country Folk in Harry Enfield's television programme.
Well, by the miracle of modern technology, we return now to say that there'll be more from French and Saunders at the same time next week. And that scourge of the 16th century, Edmund Blackadder, returns to pick over the bones of the Elizabethan age this Thursday at 9, here on 2. Well, next tonight, Arena.
Discover the weekends with BBC2. There are classic films from Lola Montez, The Colourful Life of a Courtesan, to a portrait of an eccentric household in Buñuel's The Diary of a Chambermaid. Unique performances from the television premiere of Osborne's The Electrification of the Soviet Union to Jesse Norman in Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos, live from New York. There's sporting entertainment from international pro-celebrity golf with a host of stars. 2 World Bowls first-class players in the top indoor championship. Discoveries underwater contrast the first terrifying experiments beneath the waves to today's sophisticated techniques. And original drama in Screen 2 from a modern police inquiry in Reasonable Force.
We are moving off Metropolitan Police property. From now on, we will use our own telephones, our own drivers, and our own bond paper.
To a 60s childhood in Shadow on the Earth.
He drives his car with no engine.
Everybody knows a car must have an engine.
It's a flying saucer, I'm telling you.
Weekend with 2.
BBC1 are on patrol with Rockcliffe's Babies in just under 5 minutes. On BBC2 now, to mark the 50th anniversary of the Anschluss, and in the week in which Kurt Waldheim has recognised Austrian Nazi connections, Arena is showing again the acclaimed autobiography of George Clare, Last Waltz in Vienna.
Over on BBC1 now, the 9 o'clock news with Martin Lewis and Andrew Harvey. Secret Services Tonight reports on the oldest profession and talks to Angie and Gemma about their trade.
I think, if we're talking about the harm in sex, you can't possibly censor what is a civilised agreement between 2 adults in a so-called civilised society where I choose to be paid, I'm subject to the economic demands of the market, I've got to take notice of that. On the other hand, I've got my price that I won't go below, and I can say, well, go somewhere else, and for that I decide what I give.
I don't believe that all men are animals. I believe that some of them are, some of the time. But I don't think that they are. I think they have a lot of pressure on them to perform. They have a lot of pressure on them to behave and act in a certain way, and a lot of them cannot break away from that image. They're stuck with it.
Secret Services The Prostitutes tonight at 10:05 on 2. And tonight's review in half an hour explores Paris to find out why the city has become a flourishing new home for African music. But now on BBC2 we fall in with the flunkies at the court of King George for more intrigues with Blackadder III.
John's strange handicap is further described in The Listener magazine, available from this Thursday. And there's a second chance to see that programme this Friday afternoon at 5:10. In Horizon next Monday at 8:10, we meet 2 women who face a computer lottery which could affect the outcome of their pregnancies and which involves a new and as yet not fully tested technique to detect Down syndrome. On BBC1 now, there's the 9 o'clock news.
In Thursday's Time Watch, we're looking at the prices we've paid for our pleasures. How the cider of Devon that gladdened the heart of man and beast could also mysteriously cripple and kill, until a cure was found which only now, in the age of space science, is fully understood.
First to the alehouse and then to the dance house, then to the whorehouse and then to the grave.
And how the Victorian ladies of the night so threatened the health of society that Parliament stepped in, and the struggle was joined over a century ago between the claims of individual rights and the needs of public health.
That's Time Watch on Thursday at 8:10 on BBC2. Now on BBC2, comedy with that duo of French and Saunders.
Expert help is now available with the new Gardener's World Handbook, which is available from booksellers. And Peter Seabrook concludes his exploration of New Zealand's gardens at 2:40 on Tuesday afternoon here on 2.
This Sunday, the 1987 British Academy Craft Awards come live from Liverpool. The programme will be presented by Frank Boff and held in the presence of His Royal Highness the Prince Edward. Productions nominated for awards include Fortunes of War, Tutti Frutti, Porterhouse Blue, Vanity Fair, Cry Freedom, and Hope and Glory. The British Academy Craft Awards this Sunday at 8:55 on BBC2.
Over on BBC1 shortly, there's the 9 o'clock news with Martin Lewis and Philip Hayton. Here on 2, it's time to rise and shine with French and Saunders.
A very good morning to you. It's good to have your company today, and on behalf of all of us here on BBC2, I'd like to wish you a very happy Christmas.
Style for the season on 2. The Nelson Mandela 70th birthday concert on Christmas Day at 3. Seasonal style on 2.
And this is how that concert fits in with the rest of this Christmas Day on 2. We start in a moment with Storm Boy, then at 11:25, the epic film The Bible in the Beginning, starring Richard Harris and John Huston. There's some spectacular photography at 2:10 when we visit Hawaii, the islands of the fire goddess. After the Mandela concert, at 8:20, Her Majesty the Queen speaks to the Commonwealth, and this will be a subtitled version of the broadcast. At 8:30, Once in a Lifetime, a sparkling satirical comedy set in Hollywood. The Italian film The Family at 10:15 is followed at 12:20 by the classic comedy starring Jack Lemmon with Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis. Some Like It Hot. Christmas Day on BBC2. And your entertainment begins now in a beautiful but remote corner of South Australia. So sit back and enjoy this enchanting award-winning film, Storm Boy.
Now back to Boxing Day and round 9. Nine on 4.
Hiya! Yes, they are two of our very best friends, Tom and Jerry. We're like, Gordon, please speak to me. Please, Gordon, please speak to me. He's not talking to me because last night Gordon and I went to Exeter, didn't we? Yes. And we set off back fairly late, didn't we, on the motorway? And my car broke down in Bristol. Bit of a problem there. I think they call it an alternator. Well, that's what stopped working anyway, and Gordon, of course, was stuck in the car till really late and got very ratty and was most upset that he wasn't brought back to his bed and all that sort of trauma, and unfortunately we had to have a new alternator. So we arrived back in London at 4:30 this morning, as a matter of fact, so if he looks a little bit... come here. If he looks a bit red under the eyes, it's because he was up very, very late. I've got one person I must thank. Is a superman. Is a chap called Martin Simmons, and Martin Simmons is a mechanic. And he saved our life, didn't he? Yes, in that little service station near Bristol. Saved our life. Now then. What a mess. I am so bad with cars, you wouldn't believe it. If it breaks down, I clean the back window, you know, that's supposed to sort it out, but not a chance. Have you seen his jumper? Oh, come on, talk to me. Look, have you look at this jumper? It says, I'm with the idiot on here. Look, that's not very fair, is it? I would like one myself, actually, but I didn't get sent one of those. I'm with the idiot. Somehow, sometimes, I think you're taking over. Don't you shout at me, young fella, me lad. All right. OK, fine. This afternoon on Oh, he's chucked a moody on me. This afternoon on Children's BBC at 3. I don't care. We don't need you. We've Bertha. And then at 4:10, there's Laurel and Hardy, which is followed at 4:15 by Johnny Briggs. 4:25, there's Banana Man. At 4:35, the last... You've got your sleeve in my tea! The last in the present series of Lift Off with Coppers & Co. Then there's Newsround and Eureka. So please, don't go away.
Good night.
On Saturday, a new quiz game, Every Second Counts, hosted by Paul Daniels.
Hello, this is where our contestants will be sitting to play a brand new game called Every Second Counts. Married couples will be competing for and against the clock in a game where we give the answers and they decide whether those answers are correct or not. Our winners then play for prizes in a very exciting final game. Join me and our contestants and play along at home in Every Second Counts.
That's Saturday at 7:10.
On 2, in a couple of minutes, Robert Symes investigates the strange affair of the Doomsday Prophecies, in which ancient writers seem to have predicted that the end of the world is nigh. But no end yet for BBC1, where in half an hour we begin a series of David Taylor's Zoo Vet stories, one by one, and that's after EastEnders.
That interview was recorded earlier today before the Prime Minister travelled to Venice. Father Matthew's daughter is keeping body and soul together on BBC2 in a minute while living with her guardian priest. In 10 minutes, we've the news and Election 87. This is BBC1, it's 9 o'clock. There now follows a party election broadcast by the Labour Party. That was a party election broadcast by the Labour Party, and it can be seen again later this evening on BBC2 at 10:15. Well, in 55 minutes, we join Ronnie Corbett in Sorry. That's here on BBC1.
BBC News and Election 87 with Martin Lewis and Andrew Harvey.
Good evening. Hello. Today's temperatures were disappointingly low. London wasn't actually the warmest place. It was Gatwick with 17 Celsius, 63 Fahrenheit. All these numbers should be reading 17 Celsius, 63 degrees Fahrenheit. But this cool and showery weather will continue for some days yet, right up to election time in all probability. But we'll all get some sunshine, I think, between the showers. But temperatures only barely creeping up to average. There's the reason for it on the satellite sequence. All of northern Europe covered with cool, grey, thick shower cloud, and fronts about too. There's one of them down there over Venice at the moment. That's the way the chart looks just now. A deep area of low pressure dominating the weather over northern Europe, with fronts none too far from the British Isles as well. Now tomorrow's chart looks depressingly similar to that, with the low pressure still very much in charge. Now, most of the showers have died out inland. Now, there are still some about round the coasts. These thunderstorms are moving off over the channel now, but too much cloud and too much wind for any problems with frost and fog tonight. Tomorrow's weather will build it up in chunks. The coolest weather, I think, near that eastern coast of England and perhaps some eastern coasts of Scotland too. Cloudy, rain or drizzle from time to time, and temperatures well below normal. The brightest weather of all in the west. Here, a mixture of sunshine and essentially light showers. Now, for the rest of us, and that's most of us in the middle, starting off more or less dry, but showers will once again develop during the course of the day. And over central and southern and eastern parts of England, once again, by the afternoon, some of these showers heavy and thundery in places. But there'll be some sunshine, especially, we think, down in southwestern districts there. Temperatures still disappointingly low, still a miserable 10 in the northeast there. Perhaps Southampton beating us all with 16 Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's a rather cool, showery summary of that. May I wish you a very good night.
Tomorrow, preacher Littlejohn appears to be on a divine mission. Journalist Perry thinks otherwise.
What about underage baptism in freezing cold, possibly toxic waters?
How can you have underage baptism?
There's a smell about this one. You know what I mean, Jean?
How? Lord, how can we help? By ensuring your earthly life with our foundation.
Praise the Lord.
For as little as $1.35 a week.
Eric Vickers?
Oh, God.
Eric Vickers, what is that?
Almighty, most merciful God, the forces of evil are at the door. Strengthen my hand, I beseech you, that I may only do your will. Act only as thou wouldst wish. Advise me now, instruct me, tell me what to do.
Eric Vickers!
Thank you, Jesus. I think we'll slip out the back door just for now.
Marjorie and the Preacher Man, tomorrow at 10:05 on BBC1.
Well, divine intervention doesn't get a look in half an hour here on BBC One when burning tyres squeal round Los Angeles in our late film starring Ryan O'Neill as the driver, the best getaway man in the business, hotly pursued by Bruce Dern as the determined cop. Oh, Morris Minors aside, life begins to accelerate for Timothy, no longer wishing to be described as confirmed bachelor or adolescent in Sorry.
Now on to a complicated birth. That of the National Health Service is recalled in the third part of our series, Now the War is Over.
Everyman returns this evening for a new series, and it starts with a special report on jihad, Afghanistan's holy war. That's tonight on 1 at 10:20.
Hello, I'm getting ready for a brand new television series called The Clothes Show. Now, each week I'll be looking at everything from jumble sales to the latest looks in designer wear, and everything too from male fashion to mail order. Now, each week I'll be joined by the designer Jeff Banks, who'll be giving an insider's look at the whole world of fashion and how that's reflected on the high street. So join us, won't you, on The Clothes Show.
And that's tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock on BBC One.
In an hour's time, there's World War II drama at sea with Robert Mitchum and Kurt Jurgens in The Enemy Below. First on BBC One, Confrontations East End style.
New comedy for spring on BBC One. Imagine having him for a neighbour.
Hello? Well, it sounds like a blockage in your waste pipe.
Or living next door to her.
This is actually very fashionable.
Louisa Rix and Gareth Hunt trying to survive side by side. New comedy starting tomorrow at 8:30 on One.
BBC Two now has joined some of the theatre world's greatest talent for the presentation of the Laurence Olivier Awards, hosted by Diana Rigg. And later at 10:30, BBC Two pays tribute to Benny Hill, who died last week. It's an omnibus celebration of the life of the man and the saucy humour he made very much his own. We on One turn to the comedy and drama for Carla Lane's characters in Screaming in an hour's time. First, life is about to make Victor scream as Christmas 1990 looms, as do the gnomes and the back end of a horse.
A very good morning to you and welcome to BBC One. Well, Saturday's programmes begin in a couple of minutes with a homework problem in which help is at hand from the family Ness. And that's followed at 8:35 by a frightening time for the Muppet Babies, who are chased by the dreaded slime monster. And then at 9 o'clock we begin a busy morning at the Saturday Superstore with guests including Cliff Richard, Sarah Brightman, Nick Kershaw and astronomer Heather Cooper with news of a total eclipse of the moon. And with Grandstand starting at 12:15, that's the morning ahead on BBC One. And now on BBC One, we're off to keep an appointment in the Highlands with the family Ness.
Saturday on 1 at 5:40, Noel Edmonds.
This week we're on the Seven Seas. I can't be more Pacific than that. Will there be a mutiny? If you want to know, you better watch.
At 6:25...
Too many cooks spoil the broth.
True.
See, and you thought show business was difficult.
At 7, Russ Abbott tightens the screws.
By the time I'm through, he'll be singing so loud they'll hear him in John O'Groats.
What's his name?
Des O'Connor.
Tristan tries out his new toy at 7:30.
I see, yes. So this is the sound that tells me when a veterinary surgeon's got a scalpel in his pockets. Fascinating.
At 8:20, Alf's hoping to clean up. Clint meets his match at 9:10.
God help us, no good idea to shoot straight.
With Rory Bremner and our late film The Changeling, this is Saturday Night on 1.
Now on 1, just before we hand over to Noel Edmonds, we've 25 minutes in the company of some of the most famous cartoon characters in history. Stay tuned.